All right, let's just get started. Thank you everyone for hopping on. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, awesome. All right, cool. Thanks for hopping on. Obviously, last week I was knocked out of COVID and feeling much better now. But oh man, Omicron is pretty rough. I avoided it for about 2 years, and man, COVID's pretty rough. But in any case, a lot of people are going to trickle in here. But on my YouTube videos as well as via email, a lot of people reached out to me, just asking how I'm able to balance working full time as a pharmacy director at a hospital and also managing my portfolio. I believe today it grows every day. I have about 90 units right now. I own five single family homes, a 20 unit apartment complex, which I'm renovating half the units right now. I have a 26 unit as well, which I'm renovating half the units, and the mobile home park. I am renovating units there as well, and I'm bringing in homes to start to sell. Right. So obviously, I'm doing three pretty heavy value add projects while working full time, right? So I work, 40 hours a week at least, and I commute about an hour each way. It's pretty standard in Los Angeles to go an hour each way. So a lot of people they just ask me how, like, how is this even possible? The thought of buying an apartment complex it seems impossible for most people. Most people start off in single family, and even that seems intimidating, right? And then trying to buy an apartment complex, and let alone buy your first apartment complex, it can get very intimidating, right? So a lot of people reached out to me, and I get it, right? Everyone has paralysis analysis. Lucky for me, I'll share my mindset. I don't. I can take action with very limited information. It's a blessing and a curse. So the way I describe it is, I'll jump out of an airplane and build my parachute on the way down, right? So that's me personally. But I get a lot of people, especially people in healthcare, engineers. They're very methodical. They want to know all the facts before they take any action or take any risk, right? But just from my experience, like I started in real estate about 5 years ago, and I had a bunch of buddies that I was talking about real estate, and you know, um, I was the only one that took action, right? So I was able to scale to 90 units, about $12 million portfolio right now without any partners, and a lot of my buddies that I started off with, they still haven't bought their first home yet, right? And the compound effect is magnified over a 5 year span, right? When you work on a daily basis, it seems very small. So that's just kind of one attribute that I have. And then another attribute that I kind of live by is, I kind of learn by doing. I'll be honest. Like, you can take courses, you can have a mentor. I've done all that. You can get all the information, but honestly, nothing sticks until you actually buy real estate yourself. So, what I recommend you do is just follow a system, to a T. You can modify it, based on your style, and then you will really only learn once you have a deal under your belt, right? So that's kind of the sticking point for most people. And kind of another thing that, fortunately, I was able to learn through my day job is I manage about 50 pharmacists right now, right? So I'm very good at, delegating duties. I'm very good at vetting people, right? Vetting pharmacists, and in real estate terms, it'd be vetting a property manager, vetting a general contractor, vetting a broker, vetting a insurance broker, mortgage broker, anything, right? I mean, in real estate, it's a huge team, right? So, I have to vet them, and then kind of I implement something called trust but verify, right? So what I mean is, yes, I'm delegating over to my property manager to manage my 46 units that I own in Oklahoma City, right? I'm in California. there's no way I can fly to Oklahoma to answer any phone calls, and I don't want to. I don't want a tenant to call me uh, from Oklahoma to fix a toilet or do any of that stuff, right? It's not what I want to do, right? If I had to do that, I wouldn't own any real estate. I'd probably sell it all and move on. But because you have to be able to kind of hire and trust people, right? So that's another issue that people struggle with is they cannot delegate and let things go, right? Some people are so controlling and they want things done A, B, C exactly all the way through Z. And trust me, I know because I'm a pharmacist. We're OCD, right? We're literally OCD to make sure that the drugs are correct. But in my mind, if someone can do a job 70 to 80% as well as me, then I'm delegating that task out, right? And if you hire correctly, they should do the job better than you, right? Like I'd hope my property manager can manage real estate better than I can, right? I'd hope my insurance broker can find me a better insurance policy than I could myself online, right? I'd hope that my contractor can give me guidance on how to renovate my 13 units, right? Like what's popular in Oklahoma, it's different than what's popular in California, right? In California, it's LVP flooring, brand new kitchen countertops, quartz, light neutral tones. In Oklahoma, they're okay with laminate countertops, right? So, I would hope they'd know more than me. So, obviously, the fear that everyone has is you're putting a lot of trust into people, right? That you barely know. And I'll be honest, I kind of haven't even met my property managers in person, right? It's all through telephone, it's through Zoom, through Google, FaceTime. And how I kind of create systems in place is you have to really know your stuff, right? So like, someone can't, for lack of a better word, bullshit me, right? Because I know the basics, right? I know how to renovate a unit, and I know roughly how much it's going to cost, right? And the reason why I know is because I asked, five general contractors to give me bids on my units, right? So I know that, in Oklahoma City at least, if I want a brand new kitchen, brand new flooring, brand new paint, brand new bathroom, it's gonna cost me $10,000, right? I know that just because I interviewed five or six general contractors, right? So if when I buy my next apartment complex and I get a quote for $15,000 for the same work, I know that contractor might be trying to cheat me, right? So immediately I just move on from that property manager, right? Or I'll just tell them, hey, like I've renovated before, got multiple quotes. I've seen it around 10,000. Like, how are you getting 15,000? Right. So I mean that's the nice way of calling someone out, right? So once you kind of develop those skill sets, that's when you can apply the 80-20 principle, right? So that's what I live by, honestly. So that's the Pareto principle. So 20% of your time completes 80% or drives 80% of your results, right? So for me, my 20% is honestly all I'm doing is sending letters out, and I outsource that. So I just pick up my phone to talk to these owners. I mean, that's the best use of my time because my skill is finding seller pain points and doing negotiations. And then after that, I analyze the deal, right? Only I can analyze the deal. Brokers bring me deals. They're terrible. They're overpriced. Wholesalers bring me deals. They're terrible. They're overpriced. Um, I've never been brought a good deal from a broker yet. I'm still young in real estate, but so I'm hopeful. But no one brought me a good deal yet. So my best time is spent analyzing the deal, right? And then after that, it's really creating systems in your market, right? So in Oklahoma, I have a system now, right? I have two, three property managers that I can call so if one doesn't work, I have a backup, and my backup has a backup, right? And then, I have my contractor team there. I have three contractors in Oklahoma City. I have three mortgage brokers in Oklahoma City. I have three insurance brokers in Oklahoma City. So I have my system now, right? So once I did that initial vetting, and I test my operators, right? I tell them like, hey, I have a 26 unit. I'm small, I get it, but if you do a good job, I want to scale, right? I want to scale alongside with you. So I eventually want to own hundreds of units. and I want you to be my property manager because I like to create systems and just throw a product into the system to better leverage my time. So, that's what I did. So I have a system in Oklahoma City now, so that if I get a deal under contract or I want to close on a deal, at this point, I don't even need to go, right? I can literally sit at home in California and just have all my systems and checks in place, right? So, like for example, when my general contractor is doing renovations, I pay my contractor on a weekly basis, right? That's how contractors like to be paid. And I tell my contractor, if you want to get paid your weekly draw, you need to send me photos every week, every Friday. On Friday, you send me photos, and my property manager is going to go over and inspect what you've done to verify that you did what you said you did, right? If you said you installed the kitchen cabinets in unit 4, my property manager is going to go in unit 4, and we better see kitchen cabinets installed, right? And between the photos, um, my property manager doing the weekly inspections, and then I do a weekly call with my general contractor. That's how I verify what they do, right? And then also I phrase it as, hey, like I need to be kept in the loop, and I need to make sure that I have my funds ready to fund the renovation, right? Because if I don't have the money ready, no one gets paid, nothing gets done, right? So that's where I really focus on is just managing these people, vetting my team, managing my team, and then managing my money, right? Because as at the end of the day, if you don't manage your money correctly, you're gonna lose all your deals, right? I bought 86 units in 1 year, which is a lot, right? So I'm kind of slowing down a little bit, but I'm kind of pumping the brakes because like I don't want renovations are taking a little bit longer. They're costing me more money. I don't want to run out of money, right? If I run out of money and none of I'd have three bad deals versus like one good deal, right? I'd rather have one good deal versus three bad deals. So I really, leverage that 20-80% or 80-20% rule. And it's just how I kind of be able to leverage other people's skill sets. I'm able to build a team around myself. And then most importantly, I'm able to, trust my team, right? Because a lot of people, like owners are difficult to work with. Like, I'll be honest, like some owners will yell at their property managers. They'll, at the end of the day, the property manager can give you a suggestion, the contractor can give you a suggestion, but at the end of the day, you're the owner. You pay the bills, right? So you can override everything that they've just told you. But for me, I tell them that, hey, you're my local expert. You know the area, and I'm gonna leverage your skill and your knowledge um, to figure out what's the best solution. And I just ask a lot of questions, right? So that's my skill. I can ask a lot of questions, and for me, I'm just trying to understand things and learn, and maybe just throw a different angle at it, right? So that's how you kind of leverage yourself out of the business, so that to be honest, when I'm at work, I might get a couple emails here and there. They might text me or call me, so I might have to step out for a little bit to take care of an issue. But once you have your systems and checks and balances in place, I'm pretty much removed from a lot of the day to day operations, and it gives me time to host these weekly calls. I still have a relative decent social life outside of work and real estate, and it's a lot of sacrifice. I mean, it's not easy. I will admit that I have a pretty high stress tolerance compared to most people. Even me, sometimes I wake up and I'm even getting stressed recently, doing three renovations and, shelling out like, $70,000 a month, every month for the past 6 months, just for renovations. Like a lot of people have never had that much money ever, right? And that's how much people make in a year. So, it does get the best of me too, right? Even as a pretty experienced investor, and I've been doing this for a while, but, every day, you get kind of cracked as well, right? It's not all glitz and glam. People see my portfolio, they get very impressed, but there's some dark sides too, right? It's not just all, um, rainbows and sunshine. And also with real estate, a lot of it, especially starting off, there is some sacrifice. I will say, obviously, your social life. I mean, all my free time, like when I was getting my first apartment under contract, was spent. I called like at least 20 property managers to vet them. I called like 10, 15 contractors to vet them. I called like 30 to 50 lenders just to figure out who'd give me the best terms. So, I mean, it's a lot of work, right? Like, you spend your Saturdays, your after hours. I commute an hour back and forth from work, and literally during my commute, I'm like talking to, investors or lenders or brokers, right? So I literally have no free time. And kind of another thing that kind of helps me juggle all this, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit efficient compared to most people, is you have to have, the right mindset, right? So in single family real estate, you don't really need a mindset to be successful. Like you just need to buy, 10% down, have a decent job, and for the most part, I mean, you just kind of rent it out, and hopefully you cash flow, right? California, we don't cash flow in California in single family, but with multifamily, it's really about your mindset. Like if you buy a bad deal, if you give it enough time and you have the right mindset, and obviously you have the right money reserves, then given time, you can make that deal successful, right? So I kind of have this saying in like commercial real estate. It's about how long you can stay alive, right? You lose money when you lose money in a deal when you run out of money and you're forced to sell, right? That's when you're forced to lose money. But if you have enough money, you have enough reserves, I can hold on to my deals for 3 to 5 years. And I guarantee you, if you hold on to a deal for 3 to 5 years and you have the right mindset to problem solve and pivot, and view hiccups or bumps as an opportunity to learn, then you will be successful in real estate, right? I mean, if you look back 5 years from now, even me 10 years from now, I'll look back and all the stress I had buying my 86 units will seem like nothing, right? If I'm retired or whatnot from pharmacy. So you have to have a long-term outlook, and just view things that way, right? So like my 20 unit, I just closed on it back in May, and I had to fumigate all 20 units for bed bugs, and it costed me $10,000 to fumigate 20 units. And bed bugs are hard to kill, even though you fumigate. Like you have to fumigate multiple times, right? So imagine spending like $30,000 just to fumigate your apartment complex for bed bugs, and that sucks, right? That definitely sucks. In the moment, $30,000 is quite a bit, but in 10 years, will it matter? Right? Is it going to matter in 10 years if I own this apartment complex for 10 years and, I doubled or tripled the value of this 20 unit apartment complex? And I feel like the answer is going to be no, right? The answer is going to be no. In 10 years, it doesn't really matter. So, if you have, the right mindset, you will be successful. And in commercial real estate specifically, you have to have a business mindset. So I think that's the hardest part from transitioning from single family to multifamily, is you have to think more like a business, right? So how can I scale this? And are you going to scale, self-managing your own real estate? You can't. It's impossible, right? Like if I had to self-manage my own real estate, I couldn't work full time as a pharmacy director. If I had to prepare my letters myself, to get off-market deals, that takes me 8 hours. That's my Saturday, basically, just preparing letters, right? I don't want to give up my Saturdays to prepare letters and get carpal tunnel, right? So I have to outsource it to a company and pay for it, right? So you get to pay for it. And you have to kind of focus a lot on, learning about real estate, right? So that when you talk to contractors, brokers, investors, owners, anybody, like you can sound educated and know your options, right? Like my contractor, if you think about it, your contractor's paid based on a percentage, right? They charge 10% of the renovation cost. So they're incentivized to, the more your renovation cost goes up, they get a higher percentage, right? So if your budget was 200,000, but you spend 300,000 and they get 10% of that, they're making, $30,000 now, right? So, but if you're not educated, you just blindly trust them, and that's how you get cheated, right? But for me, I educated myself about the basics of renovation. I mean, I'm no expert, but I know like the basics of like, doing LVP flooring and throughout the house. You can repaint kitchen cabinets. You can reglaze the bathtubs. You keep the paints very neutral so that everyone likes it. All these strategies, and even like with lending, like I can speak the same lingo as the loan officer, and probably know I know how to speak their lingo, right? Like I know the deal has a debt service coverage ratio greater than 1.25. They're gonna like that deal. And if my debt service coverage ratio is, let's say, 1.5, maybe I can do seller carry second to lower my down payment, right? So like you only know this stuff by self educating yourself. So I honestly spend most of my time just getting educated about real estate, right? Whether that's podcasts, taking courses myself, or learning from mentors or whatnot. So most of my time is honestly spent learning, and then once you know, that's how you can vet out people real quick, right? So I can tell if someone is trying to cheat me or trying to bullshit me, or trying to take advantage of me, because it's easy, right? I'm in California, I'm far away. Like, what am I gonna do, fly there? It's gonna take me like 8 hours to fly to Oklahoma, right? And I have to take time off from work. So once you kind of build your systems, and you have a checks and balance system, that's when you really can start to leverage yourself out and start to think like a business, right? So for me as a business person, I just vet my property managers. If my property manager is not performing, and how do I measure my property manager's performing? Well, are they sending me my monthly reports? If they're doing renovations for me, are they giving me weekly updates? If a tenant is not paying, or are they following the local state laws to evict the tenant or give the notice, right? Like, if I have tenants who haven't paid me in 90 days, and in Oklahoma I know that I can evict someone in 15 days, like, what's the delay, right? So at that point, my property manager's not doing their job. So either A, I need to have more weekly follow-up meetings with them, or B, I got to start preparing my second property manager to take over my property, right? So it's really just delegating, verifying people, and it takes practice, right? Like, I didn't develop this overnight, right? I've been a pharmacy director for like 5 years now. um, so I'm used to this, right? But if you're not used to it, then it just takes practice, right? And the first step is just getting educated, and obviously you can learn from people too, right? Like, you don't have to start from ground zero like I did. You can learn from me. You can learn from people on YouTube. You can learn from people on forums. Anybody, right? You can learn from anybody. There's a lot of information out there. And another thing too is, like, when you self educate yourself, like, just keep it real simple, right? Like, some people, they try to explain concepts to me, and like brokers, mortgage brokers, insurance brokers, even real estate brokers or syndicators too. They just overcomplicate things to the point where, like, if a sixth grader can't understand it, like, you haven't mastered the topic, right? So that already weeds people out already. Like, if someone can't explain to you as if like you never understood real estate before, then maybe either A, you're trying to sound smarter than what you really are, or B, you just don't know the concept, right? So, multifamily, I'll say, I think it's easier than single family once you know the basics, right? Like, it's so much easier. The lending requirements is so much easier. Like, now, if I bought a single family home, I just get so frustrated with uh, the loan officer, because they ask for every single document, versus in multifamily, they look at the apartment complex first and me second. So they're just asking questions about the apartment complex. So that's pretty much how you scale, right? So at this point, I'm never gonna buy a single family home again unless it's for me to live in. I'm only gonna buy multifamily. The value is based on the net operating income divided by the market cap rate. So, single family, you get cash flow or appreciation, right? You buy a single family in California, it's only appreciation. Most of my single family homes in California, I break even or I'm negative, but I've made, hundreds of thousands of equity. I also have a single family home in Alabama, and I make about $800 a month on that property, but there's no appreciation, right? But in multifamily, the more money I get in rents, my NOI goes up. And then based on the NOI divided by the cap rate, if the cap rate is like eight cap in Oklahoma, then as you get more cash flow, the property's worth more. And that's when you do the BRRRR, right? Let's say I bought an apartment for half a million, it's worth $1 million now. I can do a cash out refinance, 75% loan to value, pull out the money, pay off my old loan, and I take out all my down payment, all my renovation costs, right? And then I can buy another piece of property. So imagine you do that. You buy 20 units, do a cash out refi, pull your money out. Now you buy 40 units after 3 years. And then same thing. You do value add. After 3 years, it's stabilized, cash out refinance. After 3 years, then you buy 80 units and you repeat the process again, right? You value add, cash out refinance, pull your money out. And now you just bought, what is that, 140 units in 10 years. I mean, with 120 units, 140 units in 10 years, anyone will retire, right? Anyone at that point, if they're stabilized, will retire. So, that's kind of the power of multifamily. Like literally in a decade, if you put in the work and you learn the systems, you basically can just say goodbye to your day job and just do whatever you want, right? You can retire. So, that's kind of my rant there. I kind of went on topic a little bit, but that's just kind of how, why I like multifamily, right? Like my apartments make enough money that I can afford a property manager, right? My single families, I have to self manage it because I'm already negative without a property manager. If I had to pay a property manager 10%, I'd be even more negative, right? So, that's why I moved over to multifamily because it's more scalable. Like, could I manage 100 single family homes in California? I probably couldn't, right? And I wouldn't want to do it either. But can I manage 100 units in Oklahoma by hiring a property manager? I could, right? So that's just kind of the approach and the mindset that I had. And it's a lot easier to force appreciation of apartments, right? Like, I'm under control. I can increase the rents. I can do renovations, increase the rents. I can charge you for water. I can bill you for parking. I can charge pet rent. That's all in my control, right? In single families, I can raise your rent by $200. It doesn't make a difference on the value of the property, right? Like, it's worth whatever the sales comps are. So that's why I don't like single family anymore, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to probably sell some of my single family homes and trade up to apartments and do a reverse 1031 exchange, right? Because I have a lot of equity built up, but that's later down the road, right? So I call single family homes like little piggy banks that you smash and you trade up to apartments. And that's when you can have that life changing wealth, right? And that's what my goal is. And I'm sure that's what everyone's goal here is as well. So, anyways, sorry for that long rant there. Hopefully, I gave you some ideas as to how I was able to kind of balance all that. I will say, unfortunately, when you do scale in real estate, you do lose friends, right? I will disclose that because people get jealous of you, right? Like if I told my friends that I hung out with back in high school, back in college, that I own 86 units, the first reaction that they have is they get very jealous of me and they get angry at me. Like, why are you so arrogant? Why are you showing off? Right. But in reality, they just feel bad, right? Because, we came from the same place, right? We came from the same high school. We came from the same college. We came from the same pharmacy school. But how come I was able to amass 86 units and they haven't, right? But they don't see the fact that I put in a lot of hours behind the scenes, right? I educated myself. I spent over 10,000 hours learning about real estate. I spent my free time learning about real estate. If people went out to drink at night, I would stay in and study real estate, right? So there's a lot of sacrifice that happens behind the scenes that no one sees, right? You all just see me after 5 years, right? And I have an 86 unit portfolio. It's impressive, but it took me 5 years to get there, right? So yeah, so that's kind of the challenge, and there are a lot of sacrifice, and for me, my parents don't understand real estate. Like my dad thinks that like, why are you buying real estate? It's so risky. Debt is so risky. Like just work your pharmacy director job. You make good money. Like why are you stressing yourself out, right? So a lot of people are going to doubt you. A lot of people are not going to get it, and it's lonely, right? It's very lonely when you do real estate by yourself. So my joke is like this is kind of therapy for me, just to surround myself with like-minded people. So it's a lot of kind of behind the scenes work, and but it's worth it, right? Like at this point, I have my systems in place, and I just can kind of put things on autopilot and take it a little bit easier, right? Because at this point you know I know 80% of the information. Like nothing will really surprise me. Like I'll know a solution pretty fast, and there's just that remaining 20% that I can probably find the answer to by asking somebody for help, right? Whether it's my property manager, my insurance broker, mortgage broker, or somebody on your team, right? So that's why you surround yourself with people smarter than you. So, like for me, I'm the dumbest person on my team, and that's how I should be, right? I should be the dumbest person on my team, but I at least know the basics so that I can, vet you, right, or vet my team. So, that's just kind of my approach to things. I don't see any questions in the comments. I know it's a little bit different topic than usual, so I'll open it up to general Q and A. You can ask me about anything, how I scaled, or just anything.
Hey, Stephen. Nick here.
Hey,
Hey, so are you just strictly on your own? I mean, have you ever LP'd, and what are your thoughts on LPing in a multifamily deal?
yeah. So I do everything myself. So I've done A through Z. So I know syndicators, they're a team, right? They have someone in acquisitions, they have investor relations, they have someone doing asset management, they have someone do disposition, right? It's like a team of five or six, right? But I do everything A through Z myself. So I will generate the off market leads. If I partner with someone, I haven't need to partner yet with anybody, but if I do, I will reach out to people to find partners. I interview the property manager. I interview the contractor. I manage the asset on a weekly basis and a monthly basis. And if the property closes, I'll fly out to do a property inspection if needed, myself. So I do everything myself. But in terms of being an LP, so I haven't invested in any syndications. And for me, I think I'm skeptical by nature. That's the healthcare side of me. I'll be honest. I'm pretty decently educated. I have a doctorate degree and a master's degree, all the above, right? But at the same time, I'm also very humble too. Like I know that I still have a lot to learn. But for me, my nature is to be very skeptical. And a lot of times when you talk to syndicators, unfortunately, you're just talking to the salesperson, right? You're talking to one out of five team members, right? And a lot of times the salesperson, their job is just to get you to commit, $100,000 or whatever the minimum is, and usually you have to be an accredited investor depending on what the offering is. And for me, I'm just very skeptical by nature, right? Like a lot of the people that raise money, they just work, normal W-2 job just like me, and the way they explain things, like they just made it so complicated that it just gave me this weird feeling that, like, do you not know what you're talking about, or are you just trying to make yourself seem smarter so that people will give you money, right? So because of that, I was always very skeptical, and I have a lot of friends that invest as LPs, and to be honest, the whole point of LP is just to be completely passive, right? So don't get me wrong, like maybe one day if I've have like a 20 to $50 million net worth, and I just have so much money that I don't know what to do with it, and I just want a very passive investment, I probably will invest as an LP, because at the end of the day, I don't want it to be doing this forever, right? I can't be doing A through Z for the rest of my life, right? If you have kids and a family, like you don't want to do this stuff, right? So that's when you start doing an LP, but you still need to know how to vet an LP. And the only way to vet an LP or a syndicator is that you have to have done deals yourself, right? At least this is my belief, right? You have to done deals yourself, and you have to know to weed out the good syndicators versus the bad ones, right? Like right now, it's going to be a recession, and that's when all the bad syndicators that overpromise are going to be exposed, right? So for me, um, I don't syndicate just yet because number one, it's a different business model, right? Like I do real estate to be free, right? I don't want to have to report to an investor, and I want to have control, right? If you syndicate, you lose control because you give equity, or the investors have majority equity, right? Like usually 70 to 50%. And from what I heard is a lot of syndicators say, well, if you're an LP, like we'll teach you along the way, right? And I'll be honest, like I don't think they really teach because they're so focused on just managing the deal, right? And trying to scale more. So, and, teaching is a different skill set, right? Like it's, luckily for me, I'm in healthcare. I've been consulting patients my whole life, right? For 15 years now. So for me, teaching is second nature because I've done it, right? But if you're not used to teaching, um, in a way that like a sixth grader can understand it, then there's no point, right? So to me, I wouldn't give $100,000 to like a syndicator. I'd rather like buy a course, get self educated first, then vet the syndicator once I've completed that course, right? That's what I would kind of personally do. So I kind of hope that answers your question there, Mason. I kind of went on some tangents there.
Yeah, I did. Thanks. I'm actually doing the opposite of you. I've been LPing for quite some time, and now thinking about picking up some smaller number of units on my own. That's why I've been listening to you very intently, just to try to learn as much as I can. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, and to kind of add on to that, and thanks for hopping on all the calls and watching my videos. Because to me, like, I get it. Like, let's say I'm a syndicator, right? I have 100 units, but I only own like 5% equity, right? So that means I own 5 units. I'd rather just own a 5 unit apartment complex myself and not deal with the headache of managing these investors and because to me, if I lost my money, it sucks, right? But I can still sleep at night. But if I lost your money, I would be up at night. I'd be stressed out, right? Because my nature is I'm in healthcare. I'm supposed to help people, right? I can't screw people over. If I lose your money, money is the number one cause of divorce and stress and heart attacks, right? So if I lose your money, your health's gonna get worse, and you're probably gonna go to my hospital that I work at, right? And I'd feel guilty doing that. So that's why for me, I put my money where my mouth is first, right? So like whenever I'm ready to syndicate, if I decide to, like I've put hundreds of thousands of dollars of my own money, and I've done full cycle deals, and I want to have systems in place already, right? Like if I want to syndicate in Oklahoma City at this point, I could. I have 3 property managers who I vetted. I still want to see them complete a full cycle with me, but the moment they complete a full cycle of my 46 units, I can easily scale to 1,000 units if I wanted to. I have a system ready, and I can still probably work my full time job. To be honest, the only thing I'd probably need is like maybe um, creating the fund to raise money, and then just doing whatever weekly calls to raise money, right? But I have systems in place already to scale. So like for me, I think it's more efficient to just do it yourself, and then if you mess up, whatever, you don't affect other people's lives, and then eventually I do admit, like, I'm going to run on my own money, right? Like there's only infinite amount of money in the world. If I want to continue to scale, then I have to syndicate. But on the flip side, it's just kind of like what advantage is there for me to syndicate, right? Is it just to show off that I manage 2,000 units, right? I don't really care for that, right? Like for me, I'm just more about lifestyle. Like I want to be able just to retire off my real estate portfolio and wake up one day and hopefully not have to go to work, right? For me, it's just options and freedom. My fat fire goal is $20,000 a month net. Once I have that, I don't need to work anymore, right? And at that point, I can probably do whatever I want, right? If I want to travel to Bali tomorrow, I'll go to Bali, right? If I want to go to the Philippines in 2 weeks, I'll go to the Philippines, right? So for me, it's just about options and lifestyle. So that's why I'm not a big fan of the syndication model, at least. But I do know that if I do want to grow, I eventually have to go there, right? So it's an inevitable point. But um, so yeah, so kind of my model and what I teach in my course is basically how to go from A through Z yourself without any partners to get an off market deal, analyze the deal, negotiate the deal, vet the property manager, vet the contractor, pick your insurance, um, go through the whole close process. And then what do you do after you take over the property, how to manage your property manager, and then what to do when you're ready to do your cash out refi, right? So it's literally A through Z system, and it's catered towards people who want to self manage it themselves while working full time, right? And I'm living proof of it, right? So I did it working full time, and I will admit, pharmacy director is pretty busy, right? I mean, it's pretty busy. My hospital is like the second busiest hospital ER in the nation, so it's pretty busy, right? And despite that, I'm still able to, manage my portfolio and still have a decent social life and still have time to spend, talking on these sessions, right? So that's just kind of my system and my approach, and I just want people to know that it's possible, right? A lot of people reach out to me saying that I'm so intimidated, I don't know what to do, right? Like they're so intimidated by the process and they become a deer in headlights. So for me, my goal is just to make it's easy. It's not as hard as you think, right? Honestly, if you go through the course and you complete it, you're gonna be like, man, this, apartments are so easy. It's not as complicated as people make it out. So um, hope that answers your question. Any other questions from anyone else about anything?
Hey, Steven, I have a question. Mike Severe here. Just kind of following up on the whole syndication conversation, because I think there's an interesting topic here. I mean, wouldn't you say that kind of, at least for being an LP, the whole point of syndicating is that, you kind of put your money and your trust into the GPs and kind of everyone else doing the work so that as an LP, you can kind of just sit on the side and let your money work for you, even albeit, you're not making, you're making, but like, for example, 5%.
Mhm.
But at least at that point, you don't have to be on your own. It's not your stress that you're not having to do the management or run the deals or do whatever. It's kind of on the GPs. So I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that, because like I work in healthcare like you, and I totally get what you're saying. I work for Kaiser Oakland, so especially with COVID, like it's been hectic for like the last couple of years, and it doesn't seem like anything's slowing down. So it's like the idea of syndication just seems so interesting to me in a way, because I've been doing kind of my research into like single family, and like you said, it is a lot of work. It's like running all these deals, running all the numbers. It's like I come home from work, it's like I'm tired. I don't want to have to come home and then have to deal with more stress, and that's kind of like why the idea of syndication seems interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the end goal, right? Like for me, I want to be able to at one point after I've done the deals myself, go to the point where I'm just an LP, right? But then I feel like jumping out of the gate to being an LP isn't the right move from my perspective. Because like you said, how do you vet these LPs, right? Because you see it all the time, like on YouTube. There's like kids who are younger than me, like 18 years old. They're syndicating like 2,000 units or whatever, and that's impressive. I mean, don't get me wrong, but like how can you put your trust into them, right? So like for me, I'm always trust but verify. So I want to know that they're good, right? And if I don't have any self education in myself or anything like that, then if you haven't put in the 10,000 hours to learn multifamily or whatever, or learn from someone else, then you know, yes, it is passive, assuming they're good, but if they're not good, they'll lose all your money too, right? And then now you're stuck working, more, and you just lost like $100,000 of your hard-earned money, right? There's no that's
Right,
why they
right,
make you sign all those documents, right? Like to syndicate, you get to pay an attorney like $20,000 to set up all the PPMs and the SEC laws, and that's all that. It's just to cover them in case they lose your money, right? So, what I hate are these syndicators that think that, oh, I don't have any money, so I'm going to take your money, Mike, and I'm going to go invest, and I'll lose your money. And it's a different mentality. Like if I'm managing, like I've been through there. I've spent 100,000 of my own money, and I know the stress, right? So if you ever been through that, it's different, right? Like I'm a pharmacy director of a hospital. We spend about $40,000 on remdesivir, which is used for COVID on a weekly basis. I buy that thing. I don't even bat an eye. It's not my money, right? It's not my money. I don't bat an eye. It's the hospital's money. I spend it, right? But I spent 40,000 of my own money on renovations, and believe me, some days I sweat. It's stressful, right? To spend $40,000 a month. So for me, I'm more about like do it yourself, master it, learn it, and then at that point, once you've proven you can do it and you can do it yourself, at that point you can vet out a syndicator that is good, right? So that's kind of my approach. Because like I don't like most people think syndications or LPs as like, oh, it's easy money, right? Oh, I'm just gonna give you $100,000, never think about it, and just get my 5% on every quarterly or every monthly basis, and that's the goal, right? But then you still need to be able to vet these people to make sure they're good, right? Because like I'm not gonna give you $100,000 if you can't manage a deal better than me, right? So that's just kind of my mindset behind it. At that point, I'd rather just put the $100,000 in the S&P 500 index fund at Vanguard and not even think about it. At that point, I'd rather do that, right? I don't think about it. I just automate it, and I know that it's gonna over time, over 20 years, it's gonna do well, right? So that's just kind of my mindset in regards to that. And I do get a lot of syndicators. They do try to teach you and all that, but like I said, usually the person you're talking with on the syndication team, they're just a money raiser. So, for dramatic terms, it's just kind of a salesperson that's trying to sell you stuff, right? So, like, if you go to a life insurance agent, they're going to sell you life insurance, right? If I go to a barbershop and ask, do I need a haircut? they're gonna say yes to get a haircut because they get paid, right? Same with syndicators. If you say, hey, should I give you my money? Of course they're gonna say yes, right? So at the end of the day, there's a sales component to it, and I'm just very skeptical of salespeople in general. So that's just kind of my take. But yes, ultimately down the road, I hope to, well, I hope to train a syndicator that's very good, and I just can give them my money when I'm this like rich old person. I mean, that's my goal, right? I'll be honest. That's kind of my end goal with my courses or whatnot is I want to train somebody to be a good syndicator so that I already trust them because I train them, and then just give them my money and I'm passive, right? But then that's gonna take me like 10 years to get there to train to replicate myself. So yeah, I hope that kind of gives you some more insight there, Mike. Because like you said, there's a lot of syndicators out there, and I know a lot of people that got burned too, and there's good syndicators out there as well. But how do you know who's good or bad if you've never done it yourself, right? So that's just kind of my approach and mentality, and the inner skeptic within me. Any other I saw questions. So how do I keep track of all my expenses of all my units? So my property manager does a monthly profit and loss statement for me. So I have one for my 26 unit, my 20 unit, and my 200 lot mobile home park. So on a monthly basis, I watch it like a hawk because your value is based on your NOI, right? And if I'm doing renovations too, I need to watch my budget because I have like $200,000 set aside for my 26 unit, and I need to see how much money I have left and to see how to pivot, right? Because I don't want to wait till the last day and I have no more money. So for me, a lot of my time is just it's asset management, right? So I'm watching my income, my expenses, and if I see something that's alarming or a red flag, then that's when I will have a conversation with my property manager. So, and to be honest, just thinking about it a little further, like even if I put my money in as an LP to syndicator, knowing me, I'm probably gonna want updates from my syndicator on at least a weekly basis initially, and then once I know they can do the job, then a monthly basis, right? So like at the end of the day, you're still always checking somebody, like whether it's a syndicator, whether it's your property manager, whether it's your contractor. There's always some sort of management. Like real estate's never truly passive. If you want truly passive real estate, just buy a REIT, but you don't get any of the tax benefits, right? You just buy a REIT. That's the most truly passive real estate there is. And I used to do that, but you can't retire fast that way, right? So I'm putting in the work today, and hopefully in 10 years, by the time I'm 37 or whatever, I hope to be retired and just leave my day job. Any other questions? Quiet group today. If no other questions, I'm gonna maybe talk a little bit about. Oh yeah. So how I chose my mastermind slash course. So, well, full disclosure, I'm working on my course. It should be done. Honestly, maybe I'm uploading my lectures like right now as we speak. Um, I'm probably 97% done. It's roughly about 120 video modules. I had it beta tested by a couple people, and so it's gonna probably launch. Honestly, probably tomorrow, I'd say. Um, but how I got educated is I basically read some multifamily investing books. I bought the ABCs of Multifamily Investing by Ken McElroy. I mean, honestly, it's decent. It's okay. I watch a lot of Bigger Pockets podcasts, and a lot of those syndicators that they bring on, they don't really dive into the weeds. They just kind of like talk at a high level, in the hour. So you kind of learn a little bit, but not really. And in terms of some courses, I took some courses myself, and for me, it was just more of like I just wanted to see what other people are doing, right, and how they're teaching. And then what I did for my course was I just kind of took everything that I learned and compiled it into a way that I like to learn. And the way I like to learn is I like to learn from people that do it, right? Like it sounds kind of mean, but like every time I go to Chase, you open a bank account and they ask you to manage your money, and I honestly ask them like, "What's your net worth?" And I know it's a very sensitive topic, but if their net worth's not more than mine's, I'm not going to listen to you, right? Like, why would I listen to you? You know, if someone's net worth is $100,000 and my net worth is, let's just say, 5 million, at that point, why would I listen to you, right? At this point, I would only listen to someone who, if their net worth was maybe 20 or 50 million, because I want to learn from them. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can't dismiss people because your net worth is more, but like, it doesn't make sense to me, right? Like, if you want to get to where I'm at, if you want to get to 86 or 100 units without any partners, then learn from me, right? If you want to learn how to syndicate and have 2,000 units under management, and learn from a syndicator, right? So, for me, I like to learn from someone who actually done it. And for me, as you can tell, I like to explain things in a very simple way, right? Like, I can explain things to my friends who know nothing about real estate and explain the way they understand the concepts, right? So, that's how I like to be taught, and I like to really dumb things down. My motto's KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And if someone can't keep it simple, they haven't mastered the topic. So that's just my style. So, in my course, I do a lot of like step by step tutorials on like how to set up prop stream, set up your filters, how to, I have letter templates. So, for me, I did a couple of courses, and like, I felt like all of them were missing a piece, if that makes sense. And then in mine, I was trying to kind of, fill the gaps, right? Like, I kind of like, oh, I wish I had somebody, like I joined a course and like there's no community, right? Like, I don't know any of their students, right? And I feel like that kind of sucks. Like, I feel kind of siloed. Like I said, real estate's very lonely, but in my course, I want to create a community, right? So that, all the students can network, and I know that all these students have a similar baseline knowledge, right? So like, if they want me to invest in one of their deals, I know that they know at least what I know, um, at least, right? So, it's just that. And so like I said, the way I describe it is, it's whoever you like, right? Like, if you like me, then you'll probably like my course. If you like my teaching style, you'll like my course. If you don't like my style, you don't like the way I talk, you don't like the way I do things, then you're not going to like my course, right? So that's just how it is. It's just really, my phrase is, your vibe attracts your tribe. So if you like my vibe, then, by all means, come take my course, and it weeds people out, right? So, that's how I kind of did it. But even before I did all that, I like to learn a lot, just in general. But I kind of hit the point now where, um, I guess nothing really new for me to learn. I know 80% of things, but I'm still learning things every day. And obviously, if I were to syndicate, it's a learning curve for me as well. In terms of like dealing with investors. So yeah, great question. I have time for one more question. 8 more minutes. Any other questions?
If no one does, can I ask one more
Yeah,
question,
go
Steve?
go
Don't
for
mean to
it.
be greedy.
You're getting one-on-one coaching right now.
Well, no, I just want to be realistic with some folks here too. Is that I went through the LP route only because we have money to invest,
Yeah.
but we weren't experienced, right? And now I'm looking at your plan here. I mean, you trying to set your course here, and it's very easy to understand. I'm just looking at it from a perspective of somebody that's just starting out, right? You and I we can in the neighborhood. It's like, hey, yeah, let's go get a bank loan. We have enough down payment. We have some money to renovate and so forth. But can you be realistic with some of with your audience here, and maybe in your course as well, as to what's the bare minimum to doing what you're doing as far as seed money?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So for marketing, if you want to be successful in my course, you have to spend at least $600 a month in terms of sending out mailers for 12 years or for 12 months, right? So what is that? Around $8,000 just for marketing, right? And then time commitment, it's at least 5 to 20 hours a week, right? So it's almost a part-time job. And the more time you commit, the faster you will do it, right? So I was able to get my first deal in 6 months following my system, right? And then in terms of seed money, so my first apartment complex in Oklahoma was 50 half a million. So I had to down 25%, right? So that's 125,000. And I got $60,000 in seller repair credit. So my down payment was essentially 60,000, but I still have $200,000 set aside for renovation, right? So I was stupid and I didn't do the renovation built into the loan. So it's called loan to cost, LTC. I did an LTV loan. So I had to fork over the renovation costs. So that was my mistake, right? That's why I said you could learn from people like me. I messed up my first deal too. But yes, I would say you would need at least to do it on your own. I would say 200, $300,000, and that's buying a $500,000 asset in um, Oklahoma, right? A cheaper market. So it is a lot more money. And but what's kind of nice too is like in my course, I don't wholesale, but like honestly, if you find all these deals that I found and closed on, I could wholesale it and make $100,000 easily. Like my 26 unit, it appraised at 700 or $250,000 above what I purchased at. Could I have sold that for $100,000 more, or $150,000 more, and flipped it as a wholesale? So for me, like my course teaches you how to get good deals, right? Like good off market deals. Brokers never bring me good deals. They're always overpriced. And if you find good deals, at that point you'll make money. Whether you close on it yourself, if you don't have $200,000, you can wholesale that deal. And like I said, both my off market deals, I probably could have made $50 to $100,000 just flipping the contract, right? So at that point, I would have raised $200,000 through wholesale fees, and now I have my seed money to buy my own apartment complex, right? So I get it. Like I work a good W-2 job, but at the same time, I came out of farm school owing $250,000, right? And I paid off $250,000 of student debt, right? So I basically started at zero or negative 250, paid it off, and I had to save up my seed money next, right? So, and I wish I knew about wholesaling back then, because if you can find a good deal, you can do whatever you want, right? So my course teaches you how to find a good deals, and honestly, all my deals too, I could say, hey Mason, let's partner. You put in all the money, I'll do all the operations. We'll split 50-50. No money in the deal, right? But I know how to manage the deal, right? So I'm putting in my time, my knowledge. Mason's putting in his money, and it's more passive, right? At that point, I own 50% of the deal without zero my dollars in the deal, right? So that's another method you can do too if you have no money. But like I said, you have to at least be educated enough to know these strategies and to be able to execute it, right? And ideally, you don't need to partner, but at the same time, don't let that be a limitation for yourself too, right? So you can wholesale these deals, build up your seed money. Um, yeah, there's many ways to build money. If you have a good deal, you'll make money somehow, right? So like that was my downfall. I was so focused on buying deals, I didn't wholesale. I had some deals I could have wholesaled and made probably 50,000, and I kind of was so focused on buying a deal for myself. So yeah, that's a good question. So that's the realistic expectations if you want your own deal. And like a lot of you probably own single family homes. You can do a reverse 1031 exchange. So what you do is you just identify the property first, have it under contract, and then you sell your single family home, and then you just put the money into intermediary. Work with a company, and then you do a reverse 1031 exchange. It's less stressful, right? You already have your replacement property identified versus a 1031 exchange. You have 6 months to close on your next deal, right? So sometimes you're too stressed and you end up buying a bad deal. Versus the reverse 1031 exchange, you already have your deal and you're doing it after the fact, right? So that's what I would do, right? Like if I didn't have my seed money, I had a single family home that I lived in, and I have at least $300,000 equity. I can trade that up and buy an apartment complex with it, right? I can get lines of credits. I can get roughly around. You can get $100,000 line of credit through First Republic Bank if you have a good W-2 job. Interest rate's 4%, right? There you go. That's half your money that you need, right? If you buy a good enough deal, the cash flow from the apartment will cover the monthly payments for your line of credit, right? So it's just getting creative and knowing the deals. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. So I think we're running out of time. Thank you for hopping on. I plan on having another, I think, call for the next week or two, and then I'm going to fly off to Europe for a little vacation. But this will be uploaded onto YouTube. So if you want to check out any of my other videos, please check out my YouTube channel, subscribe. I didn't realize how hard it was to make a YouTube channel. It's so discouraging. But check it out. I record everything as I go over quite a bit. Last lecture was a course preview. The one before that, I talk about creative financing, which it's pretty. If you can master creative financing, you can scale about much money too. Like I'm pretty sure I can find deals of $0 down. Right? If you do creative financing, you can get deals for 0% down if you structure it correctly. So, I talk a lot about that in the last talk as well as my course as well. So, once again, thank you for hopping on, and hope to see everyone next week. Thank you so much.